Hi, my name is William Lawson. There are moments in politics when people pretend to be surprised. And then there are moments when people who have been paying attention simply nod and say, yeah, yeah, of course. Now, the latest dust up involving Donald Trump and a handful of high profile conservative voices falls squarely into that second category. For those of us who understand how Trump operates, not just politically, but structurally, there's nothing shocking about any of this. In fact, what we are witnessing is not a break, not a betrayal, uh, not even a true conflict. It is a natural and inevitable consequence of a leadership model that has been visible, consistent, and unmistakable from the very beginning. Some would say it was baked into the cake. Okay, because the first mistake that a lot of commentators make is assuming that Trump is operating within the traditional conservative framework. He's not. Traditional conservatism has always been a coalition of thinkers and activists and politicians who share a set of principles, but often disagree on applications. Okay. That model tolerates dissent, even public dissent, because it is rooted in ideology rather than personality. Trump's movement, however, is something different. It's not just ideological, it's directional. And it's organized around a central figure who does not just represent the movement, but defines its tone, its pace, and its boundaries in real time. And that distinction matters because it explains everything. It explains the whole nine. When Trump speaks, he is not merely offering his opinion. Okay? He is setting a line. And when that line is set, those who are aligned with him are expected to hold that line publicly, consistently, and without hesitation. This is not a hidden rule. It's never been hidden. It's been demonstrated over and over again across nearly a decade of political dominance. Those who understand that reality are not confused by moments like this. Those who do not understand are constantly surprised, constantly offended, and constantly out of step with the actual mechanics of the movement that they claim to be a part of. Right. The current situation involving criticisms from uh, from figures like Candace Owens and others regarding the U.S. posture towards Iran is being framed in some circles as evidence of some sort of fracture within the MAGA movement. That framing, at its best, is incomplete. At worst, it is fundamentally wrong. Okay. What's actually happening is not fracture, but a sorting process, a sifting process, if you will. And that process is not new. It is the same process that has defined Trump's leadership from the very start. Okay, because Trump doesn't fear tension or conflict, he uses it. Tension is not something to be avoided in his world, it's something to be leveraged. It reveals who is with him and who is not. It exposes hesitation, it forces clarity, and most importantly, it forces the hierarchy of the movement. And in that hierarchy, Trump is not one voice amongst the many. He's a central authority. He is, as many have accurately described, the captain, the coach, and the owner. Those roles are not symbolic, they're functional. And this is why public disagreement is treated differently than private disagreement. Within a traditional political structure, debate can occur openly, and competing viewpoints can coexist without immediate consequence. Within the Trump structure, however, public disagreement is not just disagreement, it's a challenge to authority. And challenges to authority, especially in moments of crisis, are met with a forceful response. Okay, that response is what many are labeling as rants. But to dismiss it as a rant is to simply misunderstand the purpose. It's not some emotional overflow. It's a message enforcement. It's a signal, both to those that are inside the movement and to those outside of it. That's the line that has been drawn, and that deviation from that line will not simply be ignored. And for those who have been watching closely, this is entirely predictable. There's always been a tension between independent conservative personalities and Trump's leadership model. People like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and others operate as independent brands. Now listen to this, because this is very important, and I think this will explain a lot. They have their own audiences, their own platforms, and their own incentives. Their success is built in part on their ability to speak freely and to challenge narratives and to maintain a degree of autonomy. That independence is valuable, and it brings energy and diversity of thought to a broader conservative ecosystem. Okay, but that same independence can become a liability when it intersects with a leadership model that prioritizes unity of message above all else. Now, this is the point where a lot of people get it wrong, get confused. They assume that because someone is broadly aligned with Trump, that they are part of Trump's inner structure. That is not necessarily the case. There's a difference between being aligned with a movement and being integrated into its command structure. Those who are integrated understand the expectation, they understand the boundaries, and most importantly, they understand when to speak and when to hold the line. Those who are adjacent often do not. This is where the conflict comes in. So, like when an independent voice publicly challenges Trump's position, especially on an issue as significant as foreign policy, it creates a visible divergence. And in a traditional movement, that divergence may lead to debate, negotiation, or maybe even a compromise. But in Trump's movement, it triggers a different response. It triggers a reaffirmation of authority. And this is what we're seeing now. Because it's important to understand that it's not about silencing dissent. Because I got a response on a post. I want you to understand this. This is not about silencing dissent for its own sake. It's about maintaining coherence in messaging, particularly in areas where mixed signals can have real world consequences. And foreign policy is one of them, right? In matters of international conflict, perception matters, strength matters, unity matters. And from Trump's perspective, public disagreement among his allies weakens the overall posture of the United States, whether one agrees with that assessment or not. It is not consistent with his worldview. And consistency is the key. Because there's a tendency among many critics and even some supporters to treat each of these moments as if they were isolated incidents. They're not. They're part of a pattern, a long-standing, well-established pattern. Trump rewards loyalty and he punishes disloyalty. He defines both on his terms and does so publicly. For those who understand that or understood that from the beginning, it's no confusion, it's no outrage. It's simply recognition. And that recognition is what separates those who are stable within the movement and from those who are constantly reacting to it. Okay. It is what exposes a deeper issue within the conservative media space. This is important. There are individuals who have built their platforms on proximity to Trump, Candace Owens, on alignment with his messaging, Candace Owens, on access to his audience, Candace Owens, on energy of the movement he leads, Candace Owens, but who have not fully accepted the structural implications of that proximity, Candace Owens. They want the benefits of alignment, Candace Owens, without the constraint of loyalty, Candace Owens. They want influence without accountability, Candace Owens. To the central authority, Candace Owens. That arrangement can work for a time, Candace Owens, but is inherently unstable, Candace Owens. Because eventually there'll be a moment where their independent judgment leads them to a position that conflicts with Trump's. And when that happens, they are forced to choose. Do they maintain their independence and accept the consequences, or do they realign and remain within the structure? Because there is no neutral ground. And this is what many are now experiencing in real time. The reaction to Trump's response reveals as much about the observers as it does about the event itself. For those who view politics through a traditional lens, see conflict and assume breakdown. Those who understand Trump's model see discipline and recognized enforcement. At the same set of actions is interpreted in completely different ways depending on the framework being applied. And for you guys, for us, this distinction is very important because the goal isn't simply to react to events, but of course to understand them, to see the underlying mechanics, to recognize the patterns, and to interpret them accurately. In this case, the accurate interpretation is not the movement is fracturing, but it's being clarified. And clarification is not always comfortable. We talk about this all the time. There's going to be turbulence. It forces choices. It exposes assumptions. It eliminates ambiguity, but it also strengthens the structure by defining its boundaries more clearly. And Trump is not attempting to create a movement where every voice is equal. Not. He is leading a movement where direction, he's leading a movement that where direction flows from the top and alignment is expected from those who choose to be a part of that. Excuse me. That model has strengths and weaknesses like any other. It creates cohesion and decisiveness, but it also can create friction with independent thinkers. Okay. It projects strength, but it also can limit internal debate. The question is not whether the model is perfect. The question is the model understood? Too many people operate within the movement without functionally understanding its structure. They assume it functions like a traditional coalition, when in reality it functions more like a hierarchy. Like I keep saying, that misunderstanding leads to misplaced expectations and ultimately unnecessary conflict. Those who understand structure are not caught off guard. They know that loyalty is not optional. They know that public disagreement will be challenged. They know that the line will be drawn. And they know that they will be expected to stand on one side of it. This is why the current situation should not be viewed as a crisis. It's a moment of definition. It's a moment where boundaries of the movement are being reaffirmed. The moment where those within the movement are being reminded of the expectation that comes with alignment. It is a moment where those outside the movement are being shown, once again, this is how things operate. This is how we do. There's a tendency in modern political discourse to overreact to every moment of tension, to declare every disagreement as rupture, and to frame every conflict as evidence of collapse. That tendency is driven in part by the media environment that thrives on drama and division, but is not always grounded in reality. In this case, the reality is much simpler. It's Trump being Trump. He is doing what he's always done. He is enforcing loyalty. He is defining the narrative. He is responding to a public challenge with public correction. And he is doing so in a way that is entirely consistent with his established pattern of behavior. For those who never trusted certain voices within the movement to begin with, this moment, it simply confirms their instincts. It highlights the difference between those who are fully committed to the structure and those who are operating on its edges. It reveals the fault lines not as new developments, but as pre-existing conditions. And for those who are paying attention, this is the real value of a moment like this, because they reveal, and they clarify, and they define. And they strip away the illusion of uniformity and replace it with a more accurate picture of how a movement actually functions. That picture is not one of chaos or collapse. It's one of hierarchy, discipline, and selective alignment. Because there will always be strong opinions on the right. There will always be disagreements. There will always be personalities that push boundaries to test limits. That is part of the culture. It's part of what makes the movement dynamic and at times unpredictable. But within Trump's framework, those opinions exist within a defined structure. They are tolerated up to a point, and when that point is crossed, especially in public, they are addressed. Folks, this is not new. This is not surprising. This is not fracture. And the system is operating exactly as it was built to work. And the sooner that people stop pretending otherwise, the clearer the conversation will become. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Mona Report. Until we see you again, go out there and learn from the love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.